Thank you guys for coming. This is obviously the Multifamily Mastery Meetup. I'm your host, Cole Farrell, and I know most of you here, but I'll give a super quick snippet for the couple new faces. I started investing when I was young. I was 18, 19, bought a duplex, Sellerfi. I had no idea what I was doing. Learned, bought a couple more units, family raised capital, etc. Got into PM, got into wholesale flipping, all that kind of fun stuff, and learned a lot of lessons. And then started Volcan Capital syndication company to start building large multi, and started MMM and building and growing. And so here we are. So I can dive into that more later. But um, before we jump into our interview, which I'm excited for, we have an awesome sponsor, Gary, who's not here. He's actually in Maine right now with his family, but he runs GSM Commercial Capital, and his info is all back there on the table. He's a national direct lender. He does everything from DSCR loans, which if you don't know what those are, I can explain that, bridge debt, agency debt, normal fix and flip debt, long term. Gary does debt. And he started in Wall Street, and then he's been doing this. He's raised a couple billion in capital through all his different ventures. And so I use Gary for a lot of my stuff, and a lot of our guys do. So I recommend him not just as a sponsor, but as somebody that's used him. So check out his info over in the back. Other couple things before we get rolling. Housekeeping. We have food and drink over here. Please eat and drink as much as you'd like. They'll just keep coming. We have a sign-in sheet on the table when you came in and a QR code. Do either one just so we can let you know when the next meeting is and kind of what's coming up. And then lastly, my goal here is to help you guys propel on your journey and kind of help you get to the next step. So please come talk to me. I'd love to see where you're at, what you're doing, and see if I can maybe just give you a tidbit of something that might be able to help you get further. So structures as follow. We're going to do our guest interview. We're going to do a little quick outro, and then we're going to do a just networking and hang out. So tonight, we're going to have an awesome interview with Jim Bachert. I'm going to let Jim tell you about himself, but first, fun fact, Jim has been coming here from almost the first meetup, and it's just been awesome having him, and he's taught me a lot through the meetups and just all these different scenarios and a lot about travel hacking, and he helped me just redeem a really cool trip, which I'll get into later. So I'll tie it in more info, but tell him about you.
Yeah, Jim Bachert. I grew up in the Lehigh Valley here, moved to California in 2009, and lived out there for almost, I don't know, up until 2020, when I officially moved my residence to Macungie for tax purposes and real estate investing. But no, I from a real estate investing perspective, I've officially been an investor since 2020. I wanted to before that, and then when I finally decided to pull the trigger, that's when realtors weren't allowed to show houses in Allentown or in the Lehigh Valley. But then I eventually, as soon as that opened back up, bought my first property. Even longer than that, and probably one of my top three passions is bank and travel rewards programs. It's called travel hacking for anybody who's seen the term online. But 20 years ago, I had to start traveling for work. I was a trainer for a retail company, and they would send me to these random Holiday Inns in the middle of Pennsylvania, like Altoona, places nobody would voluntarily go to. And as you're checking in and things like that, you start to see the literature on the desk about like sign up for a rewards program, blah blah blah. And like I thought I was balling. I'm in like a hot tub in Altoona, Pennsylvania, like in an indoor gym that's dimly lit, sending pictures to like my friend at the time. Now looking back, I was like, it's a terrible place to be posting photos from. But it really got me into these rewards programs. And I remember my first redemption went through the Holiday Inn program. I redeemed a bunch of points for $200 Amazon gift certificates, and about a year later, I was like, "That's the worst redemption of my life." But in hindsight, it's like I got something for free that I would have had to stay at these hotels anyway. My work was already paying for these hotels. Why shouldn't I reap the benefits? So that's really where the journey started. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I'm definitely not the most insane or crazy person out there that does this, but about a month or two ago, another local investor, Jason Reynolds, was speaking at Justin's meetup, and he brought up how he uses his flips and things like that and reaps the rewards for like travel hacking and things like that. And it like clicked in my head. I was like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been investing for 3, and I unconsciously do it because I just do it for everything. I just did it for my wedding. Like I purposely picked a hotel where I'd earn 4 points per dollar on my credit card at this particular hotel. My wife was happy with the choice, so everyone else was too. It wasn't the Holiday Inn in Altoona, but but it really clicked, and I asked Jason. I said, what are you doing with this? Let's have dinner. And he's like, look, like I do it, but I'm still focused on my flips and things like that. I was like, you know what? There's really a niche out there for me to be able to help people take the money they're already spending, take the things they're already doing, and reap rewards from it with maybe just banking a little differently, maybe just opening a couple credit cards that you wouldn't have done before. Uh, of course, just like real estate investing, there's scales that you can really go up and turn out to be somebody who, gets to Cole's level and is now looking at 70 some unit properties. But we all start somewhere, and I started with being happy about a $200 gift certificate to Amazon. So my goal is to help everyone here leave with some value tonight about how you can make some minor changes in your day to day with your real estate investing, and regardless of what rewards you're happy with, whether it's cash back, free flights, or you want to get crazy like me and fly on Emirates first class to Dubai, or stay in a $2,500 a night villa in Greece for $0. You can always get to that level too.
That's amazing. So break it down in the essence for anyone that has never heard of it. Just what is travel hacking in terms of like, what do you do and what does it mean?
Yeah, there's two parts here. So travel hacking is more than just points and miles and using currency. It's a currency. It's either get credit card points or hotel reward points or airline miles. That's probably most of travel hacking, or that's probably a big part of it, is earning those and then redeeming them for free flights, for free hotels, things like that. Now banks have really gotten heavily in the game. Amex has been in for a long time with their membership rewards points. Chase got pretty heavy in the game in the last 5 to 10 years. I don't remember when they started. Capital One's jumping in. Uh, Citi has been jumping in, and then Wells Fargo recently just opened the card too. So they're all seeing the benefits of the rewards programs, but they've been around for a long time. And travel hacking to me is basically number one, improving the travel experience so it's not miserable. Like going to the airport and having expedited security lines, flying back in the country and getting through global entry by just having your face get scanned or your fingerprints instead of standing in a line with 1,000 people, getting free upgrades, getting up to even economy plus or business class or first class, but basically just traveling for cheap or free and improving the travel experience. Uh, like I said, a big part of a successful travel hacking is earning points and miles to be able to redeem those. But there are other tricks I won't cover tonight. Like for example, there's mistake airfares. One day somebody posted that flights from Los Angeles to Buenos Aires were mistakenly priced at $250 instead of $2,500,
Hmm.
and I immediately booked it and flew to Buenos Aires on a 4-day weekend for $250 round trip, where the airline wanted over $2,000 for that ticket. So that was another method. I just happened to be on the right forum at the right time when somebody posted it, and as soon as I booked my ticket, I called my friend Brandon. He said, "Book one for me and my wife. I don't care what dates they are, just book it." And I did, and they flew to Buenos Aires too. So that's mainly what travel hacking is. It's getting travel for cheap or free. It's not all just luxury flights, and sometimes it's just being able to go visit your friends and family when maybe you didn't have the cash to do it.
Mm.
I had a friend who was his band was performing in Philadelphia for the first time. They were always local Lehigh Valley shows, and finally he got a gig in Philadelphia, and I was in Los Angeles, and I literally booked a flight with a 2-night turnaround. I flew out on Friday, flew back on Sunday, just to see his band,
Mm.
and it didn't hurt my wallet at all because I had more than enough points I wanted.
Mm.
And then outside of that, travel hacking sort of falls into a bigger spectrum of just in general bank rewards programs, and because sometimes bank rewards programs aren't just points and miles, it's cash back. It's we'll give you $500 if you open up an account with us and leave your money sit there for 90 days. That has nothing to do with travel, but the bank is incentivizing you to put your money in their account versus Chase or Wells Fargo or one of their competitors.
Mm. So I think it's safe to say everybody here is a real estate investor. So
Yes.
how is this beneficial for investors and how can they implement this into their world to start reaping the benefits?
Yeah. So I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. And if you look at my Facebook, I barely ever posted photos of me traveling. And one of the biggest reasons why is because it drove me nuts when people would message me and be like, how can I do this? Or you must be rich. Or how do you have so much money? Things like that. And like people would be like, can I come with you? Can I be your personal assistant? Um, a couple months ago, I flew to on business class, and it was completely on points and maybe like $100 in taxes. And like somebody replied to my wife's story, is like, "Oh, you rich, rich," and I'm just like people. So like I it's not that I don't want to help people. It's a dangerous, long, winding road to help people with because, for example, my best friend's business partner, he buys a ton from Amazon, like I'm sure we all do. And my friend was like, just get an Amazon credit card. All you have to do is just put everything on your Amazon credit card. You'll get cash back. You're not changing anything about your day-to-day habits. You're just entering a new credit card and you'll get cash back. And then his friend calls him and he's like, man, I'm really in debt. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you and your wife make $350,000 a year. He's like, I know, but we maxed out our Amazon card. He's like, well, why did you max out? He's like, well, we got to get all the points. And I'm like, so for me, I don't want that responsibility of telling people like, okay, like you need to improve your credit score. You need to be responsible with your credit. Uh, you need to do this and go through all that. The other thing is most of these sign-up bonuses and most of these things, they require you to spend a certain amount of money. Uh, an entry-level personal card typically requires you to spend $3,000 in 90 days. I remember once I had an American Express Platinum card with, at the time, a record-breaking 150,000 points. Now that's more common than you would think. You had to spend $20,000 in 3 months. I bought $20,000 in Visa gift cards and took them to Walmart over the course of 2 months and bought money orders and deposited those all back into my account. Now, the good thing is I had the cash that if something fell through and if Walmart just stopped cashing my cards, I could pay the credit card off and I would just be using Visa gift cards for the next 2 months. So I had a contingency plan. I was like, I'm not going to be $20,000 in debt and stuck paying 28% interest. But a lot of people don't. So going back to your question, when I heard Jason speaking about it, something just clicked in my head. I was like, you know what? All the hurdles that I hate explaining to people, real estate investors are already doing. If you buy a property, and even if you're doing just the basics, you're not a flipper, but you want to maybe put some new paint in, maybe you want to put the LVP floor in instead of carpet, you probably wouldn't even blink an eye if I said you have to spend $3,000 in the next 3 months. You'd probably be like, I could spend six, and that was already planned. Bill, I just saw a post from you. I think a property you acquired. How much are you planning to spend on renovations? 15 to $20,000. Like that's part of his strategy. Is I'm already going to spend this money. So all the things that I just couldn't stand, either putting people at risk to or explain to people. I'm like, here's a group of people who they're already spending large sums of cash. They're likely opening LLCs for some of their properties, which business credit cards are like sort of the silver lining of owning businesses, and their business credit cards are better than personal credit cards because they expect businesses to spend more. So guess what? They reward them more. Real estate investors typically have flexibility, especially if you're a full-time real estate investor. You might not have a traditional W-2 because sometimes the best travel deals or best redemptions, you have to be flexible in your schedule. If somebody comes to me and says, I'm leaving this date and I'm flying back this date, find me a business class ticket to Europe, I'm going to be like, I might be able to find it, I might not. But if you say sometime in June, I would like to go somewhere warm, find me a business class ticket, I have a flexible schedule, I could probably find something because I have some room to work. It might be a Tuesday flight, it might be a Wednesday flight. Airlines typically give up the seats that are least booked with cash. So guess what? Those usually fall on non-business days or non-weekends, things like that.
Love that. So you kind of touched on it, actually, a really good bit about pitfalls. So I want to just narrow that down and say, what is the biggest pitfall somebody could do? If they're like, I want to get into this, what is the one thing that they should not do or just be careful with?
Spending money that they didn't plan on spending.
Mm.
Honestly, it's if you already plan on spending, don't increase your expenses to get rewards. That's the main thing. Like I never increased my personal, even before real estate investing, when I was doing all this on a personal level, I never bought more because I wanted to hit a sign up bonus or something. Like I said, I was creative. I bought gift cards, which I was like, eventually I'm going to spend this money. It might be a little longer than I planned on, but I didn't be like, oh, you know what? Let me go buy a new MacBook because I need to spend $3,000 if my computer was perfectly fine. Now, on the opposite token, if you have a strategic purchase coming up, that's a good time to start thinking about, should I open a new card because maybe I can get a sign up bonus versus the regular day to day spend.
Love that. And it's funny because before everybody got here, we were sitting up here just chatting about this, and we were saying, you know, from the outside, it looks so good. You can get all these points, you can do all this stuff, and you can fly for free. The bank's giving you money. And we're saying, how are they benefiting? Like, where's the thing? And the problem is the banks are counting on you to overspend and then just whack you with that 30%. So just to drive that home, like they're praying that you just don't do what he just said and that you just carry that balance. So important because it's so easy to fall in that trap.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'd have people all the time ask me, this sounds like a scam. It sounds like, it doesn't sound realistic. You got to be making this up. I looked up a statistic: 49% of Americans carry debt on their credit cards, with an average balance of $5,000. Guaranteed that there's people out there carrying much larger balances, and they're paying 25 to 30% interest. They're paying for my hobby. The bank doesn't like me. I pay my credit card off every single month, and they're getting no interest off of me. So I'm not their ideal customer. On paper, I am because I have a phenomenal credit score. But the fact that I pay off my credit card every month, they're, they really don't want to be giving me. But it's just like if you ever go to a retail store and they have something on sale below retail. The idea is they want you to come in the door, buy that item, but then also buy a bunch of other items. Well, the credit card wants you to pay your $3,000 to get your 60,000 points, and then continue to use the credit card for the rest of the year and carry a $5,000 balance every month and pay interest.
Love it. So you talked about redemption and kind of getting points and where to redeem them. So dive more into that, meaning where's the best place to redeem them? Meaning like, is rental cars good? Is hotels good? Is flights good? And more into what's the best use of it versus what's not.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously a subjective question,
Mhm.
and I thought about this before. So there is a very large analysis paralysis in the redemption side of this hobby. There are people that we call miles hoarders, and basically they accumulate miles, but then they don't want to redeem them because they always think that there's a better redemption they could do down the road speculatively.
Mm.
It's the same thing as an aspiring real estate investor not buying their first property or their second property because someone who's been doing this for 10 years says, well, I'm getting 15% returns. And you're like, well, I'm only going to get this return. Maybe I should wait for something better. Well, you got to start somewhere. As long as the numbers work, that's the most important thing. And as long as you're getting value out of it. So uh, the short answer to that is the best redemptions are the ones that bring the most value to your life. If flying to Wisconsin to visit family brings more joy to you than flying to the Caribbean, and you can get that flight for free, then that's a better redemption in my eyes. But I have also struggled with being a miles hoarder part of my life because I would be like, why would I pay for a flight from Los Angeles to New York when I could save those points and I could redeem them speculatively for first class to South Africa? But I'm like, I don't have any safaris planned. Well, maybe now that I got married recently, but I didn't have any like big trips like that planned. So I was like, you know what? You can always earn more points and miles. But what happens with points and miles is the same thing that happens with if you let $100,000 sit in your bank account. Devaluations. Every
Mm.
year, these programs start to devaluate more and more. So the longer you hoard or hold on to them, uh, they're going to start losing value over time, just like money does with inflation. So there's a balance. My favorite personal redemptions are to take vacations, typically flying business class or first class, typically international, and I like to stay in. Well, it depends. If I go to a city in Europe where I plan on being out most of the day, I would actually redeem for the nicest the nicest cheapest hotel I can, if that makes sense. Like it's a clean hotel, but it doesn't have any bells and whistles. There's no like um, fancy lounge or anything like that. Because I'm like, well, I'm not going to be in the hotel anyway. I just want something that's clean. But if I'm going to an all-inclusive resort in Mexico or the Caribbean, then I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm going to be happy with the 25,000 point per night all inclusive at the Secrets in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where everything they're served making you steak and lobster and stuff like that.
You typically like to save up for the entire purchase, or do you kind of like sometimes use half full and half
Uh, it really depends on what's in my wallet at the time, and it depends what's available, right? So there's compromises. Ideally, in a perfect world, my entire trip would be covered by points and miles, and I've made that happen aside from Ubers and the basic costs that you really can't get around. I'm not going to redeem points for an Uber. I mean, you could in theory, but it
Mm.
sounds like a terrible redemption to me. Um, that's what cash back cards are for. You can get cash back on one of your credit cards. Uh, so it's really what works for you, right? If you're an investor that's spending, you're doing 4 flips a year that are all spending $20,000 to $30,000, you could probably book I'll tell you this. I have a friend Diego. I told him about this. I taught him the basics a couple years ago, and the other day he came up to me. He's like, Jim. He's like, what can I do with 1.5 million American Express points? And I was like, whatever you want. Even if you redeem them for the worst possible way to redeem American Express points, you could still do whatever you wanted. You could fly somewhere in this world wherever you want. Uh, he runs a tire loop. He runs 3 tire and oil shops, and all of their supplies they put on their American Express. So he doesn't even think about it. He's like, instead of cutting them a check, except for one of the vendors, now they charge him a 4% fee. So now he pays them with a check. But the rest of them, he pays like, I have 1.5 million points. I don't know if you guys ever saw Dave Portnoy. He's the one that does like the pizza reviews, has Barstool Sports.
Mm.
There's a viral video of him where his Amex, he had 44 million Amex points. Um, I mean, that guy literally could fly all of us in this room right now to Greece, and we could all be staying in villas. Uh, oh yeah, he had no plans to use it because money doesn't matter to him.
Mm.
So for him using those points is more of a flex for him to pull it up on his little Walgreens display. Then but I guarantee just off that video he probably made a shitload of money, whether it was that video specifically or people just going to see his brand and buying his merch, whatever.
Yeah.
Or his dog, yeah, Miss Peaches has been getting everywhere now.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, it's really depends how many points you have and what redemptions are available. My friend Diego wanted to come to my wedding in Mexico. He said things were a little tight financially, and I don't expect anyone to pay, a couple grand to come to my wedding. One day, I kept looking religiously every day to see if any points bookings would open up for the hotel because I knew he had the points. And one day, 4 nights came up, 25,000 points a night. I know he has more than 100,000 points. I said, Diego, a night opened up, or 4 nights opened up. Book it now. And all he had to pay for was the flight. So
Mm.
a trip that would have cost him, the nights were going for like $700 a night at that point. So that $2,800 that he saved $2,800 on his trip. Uh, and now it was more realistic for him to pay the cash for the flights to go to my wedding.
That's awesome. So one thing I want to dial down to, because this blew my mind, and correct me if I'm saying any of this wrong, but most of the times it's every dollar you spend on one of the points cards gets you 1 point. Is that right in most cases? But then you can redeem them for further points and stretch it. So you could take your points and redeem it for more. Or can you dive into that? Because when I kind of understood that, it blew my mind.
Yeah, so there's 2 parts to that. So number one, most credit cards, the standard earning rate is going to be 1 point per dollar. The standard earning rate. So if somebody leaves here with $100 tab and they swipe their card, if you have a points earning card, you're going to earn $100. There's certain cards that offer you 3 points per dollar at restaurants. So if you use that card, well, now you're going to earn 300 points. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up, number one, especially if you dine out a lot. Where it really comes into play, I remember I bought a property in Albertus, and I was doing paint and floor. And at the time, Giant had a promotion where any gift cards you bought would earn you 4 fuel points per dollar. So Giant has a fuel rewards program where, I don't know if you guys know, but whenever you shop at Giant or any grocery store, they try to incentivize you to get into their little fuel rewards program, but it's like you usually end up getting like 10 cents a gallon off, which I guess for some people it's still helpful. 4 points per dollar in their rewards program. So I went and bought $2,000 in Home Depot gift cards because I knew I was going to Home Depot that week anyway. So I earned 8,000 Giant fuel rewards points. So what can you redeem 8,000 fuel rewards points for? For every 1,000 Giant rewards points you have, you get $1 off per gallon of gas. So I actually have a video of the gas meter saying 0.00 and just running up with my car filling up. I literally paid $0 for gas. Like I have the video. It gave me up to 20 gallons for free, and you just see the little thing spinning and nothing. Now that's one part. That's not even the credit card I used. The credit card I used earns 4 points per dollar at a grocery store, an Amex Gold card. So instead of earning 2,000 points at Home Depot, I earned 8,000 points at Giant. Now that's a little more advanced. Like it requires a little more thought. But I mean, the thing I equate to this is just like real estate investing, right? Like everyone starts somewhere, and then you start talking to people at meetups, and you start learning more and more and more, and you get more tools in your toolbox, and then you start getting more advanced. Because I remember Bill and I were talking about this, and I was telling him about the grocery store. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, well, I get 5 points per dollar if I go to Office Depot or Staples and buy gift cards with this credit card. So then once you start entrenching yourself into it, you really start seeing that. But again, go back. I heard you saying this before the meetup. Even 1 point per dollar is better than zero in my eyes. If you were already going to spend the money. Somebody had a hand up.
For some of my cards, I see that I have to activate it. You know, that you automatically go on and activate all of the.
Oh, okay. I see what you're like the Chase Freedom. I think you have to activate them every quarter.
They require me to activate.
Yeah.
Not like every 3 months they have a
Yep.
different program. So I try to keep up with it, but I just feel like I don't know. Should I just go on every month?
Hey Siri, on April 1st, remind me to activate my Chase Freedom card.
You should get an email.
Right. I don't even. I'm now noticing that I should have been doing. I'm hearing this conversation. I've noticed it. I've tried it.
I'm not trying to be funny, but like I literally like with these, whenever I open like new bank accounts, and like this one, it says I have to leave $3,500 in there for 90 days. I literally pick up my phone and go, hey Siri, remind me in 90 days to check my Santander account to see if the bonus posted, and I'll go check it, and then if it's not there yet, hey Siri, remind me in 15 days to check, like whatever, like, yeah, I mean you can't cancel earlier, else they're not gonna give you shit. They're
Yeah.
It's the same thing with if they tell you got to spend $3,000 in 90 days, and you spend 3,000, you cross the line on day 91. Guess what? There's no mercy for you. You're not getting that 60,000 point bonus.
Yeah.
So I personally I work from home. I work at a computer all day. I do software sales. So for me to open up a spreadsheet in the morning, or for me to it used to be Mint, but rest in peace, Mint. Now Credit Karma acquired them or something. I hate it now, but I for me, like it's a little obsessive. My wife is like, you don't need to check it every day. I'm like, but I do. But I do. But getting into a routine or a habit. I mean, just like, if you have properties, you probably think like, well, the first of the month I'm going to check if all my rent's hit, right? You probably have a little list of people that they're supposed to pay you.
Right.
So just like that, it's just setting like a cadence, and everybody has a different system. I like Siri because I have my phone with me all the time. It pops up. I used to do spreadsheets where I would just filter it by like a due date, and I had like a to-do list with like a list, and there's all kinds of ways to do it. But I'm sorry, was there? Yeah. I mean, that's what I personally do.
One of the things I think it's cool just to expand on that is like just as you said is how similar like these two kind of I don't say hobbies but these businesses work together in a
Yes.
way. Like you have to be intentional with your points just like you are with your investments and you have to play the game and it
Yeah.
still takes work and you still have to track it, but if you do it properly you're rewarded heavily. And I just think it's really cool to see how it all meshes so well together.
Well,
um,
well, that's another reason that I feel like real estate investors as a whole, I mean, there are real estate investors that are terrible with tracking things and, and things like that. I'm sure there's landlords out there that have people that are 3 months behind on rent
oh
and
yeah.
they're still haven't called them. Uh, but most responsible real estate investors are already good with putting systems in place to check things on certain dates, to build weekly, daily, monthly, whatever habits. Um, and just to your point there, I mean, to give you guys a little insight, this all started, this whole travel rewards programs and all that, this all started with business travelers.
Mm.
Most points, like credit cards weren't in the picture. Most points were earned because these business travelers were on the road every single week and they were staying at hotels all the time, they were flying all the time. And these airlines and hotels realized that Cole has no incentive to book my flight versus American versus United versus whatever other than the price. His job, or he's going to be like, whichever one's the cheapest is likely the one I'm going to book. So they started putting together these rewards programs saying, look, if you book us because we know you're on the road 52 weeks a year or 50 weeks a year or whatever, keep booking with us and we'll reward you. That's where it all started. Most people used to earn miles through actually flying, through actually staying nights. I earn way more through credit cards and banks than I do through actually. I mean, I think my last Alaska Airlines flight I earned like 300 miles. It's like
Mm.
I could earn 300 miles just going and buying something at Best Buy tonight without having to sit on a flight across the country.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even have to take that long. Like I went on a cruise.
No.
I have the Chase preferred.
Yep.
Went on a cruise May of last year. We booked it probably November the year before, $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I went back home to Denmark. I literally paid $100 for a flight that
Yeah.
was supposed to cost like $7,800.
Yep.
I ended up paying $100 just because I booked through Chase and I used those points.
Yeah.
So and that was one trip.
Yep.
Love that.
I had a first class flight with Emirates. Emirates is the Dubai airline. They value luxury very much. The flight left from Los Angeles to Dubai. I stayed in Dubai. There was a trick with this airline where I could do what's called a free stopover, where essentially you stop midway and then you continue on to another city. And then I continued on to Rome. At the time, I redeemed 100,000 points for this flight in first class and $12.50 in taxes. I looked up the actual cash price. It was about $25,000 to $30,000.
What?
And you guys are probably thinking, who spent $25,000 to $30,000 on that? Millionaires out of the Middle East do, or billionaires. People who have oil money, they don't blink an eye. And I was not the only person in first class. And I will say that every other person in first class, I'm not like for a lack of stereotyping, I would guarantee that all of them were from the Middle East somewhere because I remember it was Ramadan and all of them were fasting so I was the only one eating and drinking, and the flight attendants were like, "Sir, like, do you need anything else? Like nobody else wants help." And I was like, "Well, keep bringing the Dom Perignon." So they're pouring Dom Perignon. There's a shower on board, so you literally shower. You get 5 minutes of water, but 30 minutes in the bathroom. It's a huge bathroom. It's bigger than, or as big as the one in here probably.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. When I landed in Dubai, there was a chauffeur that picked me up, took me to my hotel. That was part of the price that I paid. Like if I would have paid the $30,000 or whatever. But it opened up a whole world in my eyes that I'm like, never in my life that number one, I know this existed, and number two, I never would have thought that I would ever do something like that in my life. Like I just felt like I'm in a different pay grade than the people who do that. You had a question, and then you. Sorry, I did see his hand up, but he put it down.
What question real quick? How is taxes on $25,000 like $12?
Yeah, so it's not based off of, it's not like sales tax.
Oh,
It's based off they call it like a fuel surcharge. Now this particular program didn't really charge the fuel surcharge, but like for example, if you fly from Philadelphia to anywhere in the United States, if you actually look at the breakdown of the ticket, each way you go, there's a $5.60 charge that everybody has to pay to fly in the United States. It's just like a tax. Like it's not a percentage of the price of the ticket. It's just like a flat tax that you have to pay. So if you book a round trip in the United States, you're paying like $11.20 or something that is outside the airline's control. It's just like a federal aviation tax. So similar to that, there was like some aviation tax that somebody had that really had nothing to do with the price of the ticket.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, I know a lot of people will open up a credit card just for the bonus points or
Yep.
whatever it is.
Oh yeah, I do it all the time.
When you're opening like different credit cards, and then are you then canceling them? And if you are, is that hurting your credit at all? Or how
Don't
does that
cancel.
work?
Yeah. So number one, I've opened a lot of credit cards in my life and then never used them again. I used to cancel them, but I've learned since then that it does have some damaging effect. It's not huge, but it is a damaging effect on your credit. If you actually look at how your credit score is made up, the heaviest weight on your credit score, it's called utilization. Does anybody know what credit utilization is? Yeah, so credit utilization is the percentage of your open credit line that you're currently using. So let's say that you're a teenager and you get your first credit card and you got approved for $1,000 and you put $500 on your credit card. What's your utilization? 50%. So on paper, you look like a huge risk because they're like, shit, this person's got 50% utilization. I don't want to give them more credit because what if I give them another $1,000? Now they're going to be even closer to being in debt. They don't look at the actual dollar amount; they look at the percentage. So I think I easily have $200,000 to $300,000 in open credit card lines. So even if I put $1,000 on my credit card, I don't think I ever crossed 1%. So I'm like indefinitely under 1% utilization unless I ever like. I think recently I bought a MacBook, but I still paid it off before it actually reported to the credit card anyway. So the question is, you don't want to hurt your utilization. It actually benefits you to have the open credit line. Now, if it has an annual fee, you could call that credit card and say, hey, do you have a non-annual fee version of this credit card? Can I downgrade to that? Can I do a product change to the no annual fee version? And you could do that, and then it wouldn't hurt anything. So that's one method you could do. Another popular method, which it's getting harder to do because they're catching on, but I used to always call religiously every year and be like, hey, like I'm really thinking about canceling this card. And they're like, well, if you cancel it, we'd hate to lose you as a customer. What if we give you a $50 statement credit to keep this card open? I'd be, well, the annual fee is $95. Well, what if we gave you 10,000 points if you spend $3,000 in the next 90 days? Okay, I'll keep the card open. So I used to do like retentions a lot, but now they're getting wiser where they actually look at your how valuable of a customer you are over the last 12 months. And if you're consistently spending, then they want to keep you. If you're not, they're for lack of better terms, they're going to be like, I'm sorry, sir or ma'am, there's no retention offer on your account. Do you want to proceed with closing this card? Then they call your bluff.
Up to 2 years, I believe.
Some cards do have like an inactive period. Like for me, sometimes with cards, I'll just do like like $5 a month, like Amazon Reload, where it automatically just loads $5 a month to my Amazon Reload, my Amazon account, because I'm like, I know I'm gonna spend money at Amazon at one point or another. So what's $5 a month? It's $60 a year to keep them off my back from saying I'm not using their credit card. You had a question?
Yes, how do you catch those deals? Like, for example, if I need to go to Colombia and
Yep.
I want to get a good deal, how do you find them?
Yeah. So there are people as obsessed about points and miles and travel deals as there are people that are on bigger pockets. So just like real estate investing has their sites, my favorite sites are boardingarea.com. So boardingarea.com, like boarding, BOARDING, area.com, that's a collection of travel bloggers. So basically they hire like, let's just say 10 to 15 travel bloggers, and every day they need something to write about to get paid. If you go to boardingarea.com, it's basically a collection of their top stories. similar to if you go to news.google.com, they just curate like a bunch of the top articles. That's one of my favorite sites. It's not specifically travel related, but it does post travel stuff. Doctorofcredit.com. Doctor is spelled out DOCTOR of credit.com. Those two sites, I don't even think about it. As soon as I sit at my computer every day, I just look. Like to me, it's the same as reading the news every day. Sometimes when I have downtime at work, I get bored. I refresh it on lunchtime because the thing is, the better the deal, the faster it dies. Especially now with the internet. I mean, it's the same thing. Like it used to be super easy to redeem first class to Dubai on Emirates, but once all these Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers came along, no offense to them, but it the more people that know about something, it's I mean it's like when all of a sudden everyone started buying short-term rentals in freaking
Yeah.
Tennessee and Gatlinburg, and like all of a sudden once that stuff gets out, things gradually start getting more difficult and more difficult. But that's where people like you guys who traditionally spend a lot of money, it's like, well, let me just sort of BlackRock them and just make more and more points to the point where I don't care if I'm paying more points, because to me, earning, for somebody spending $20,000 on a flip, earning points is a lot easier than a college student who has enough room to open one credit card and maybe has to run to Walmart to cash in gift cards or something like that for $3,000.
Yeah. One last question for you before we move to the final section. How What's the best way for somebody to keep momentum? Do you recommend they kind of consistently keep opening new cards if offers are good, or just spend? Like, how do they keep just building momentum or keep growing?
The strategy is going to be different for everyone, but there is a healthy rate to open cards. When I first started doing this, I was opening 3 new credit cards every 3 months, and that was enough to stay under the radar with the banks. But they've gone a lot wiser. Chase, for example, they have what's called the unwritten 524 rule, which is they only let you open 5 credit cards in the last 24 months. One of the ways around this is business cards, because business cards don't report to your personal credit card. So if you have LLCs, every time you open an LLC, I would open up a card if you plan on spending that amount of money. Um, I actually had I think it was one of the Chase business cards. It was like if you spend $6,000 in the next 3 months, you get like 75 to 100,000 points. It's like, who here does real estate that would have a hard time? I mean, it'd be easy to spend $6,000. I would guess, unless you bought something that was completely turnkey.
Right.
I mean, heck, there's things people don't think about. Can you pay for your insurance with a credit card? When I switched from one insurance provider to State Farm, I just paid State Farm with my credit card. I think it was like $1,000 or something like that. And then my other credit card, or my other insurance company, just sent me a check for the prorated refund. Um, some people do it with taxes. I don't like taxes because they usually charge like a 3 or 4% surcharge. The only time it ever makes sense is if you're going to get like a big bonus. But if you're doing it for daily spend, it's not. But to answer your question, I mean it's different for everyone. But if you have the threshold of spending to keep opening new cards, I would, especially if it's business, because they don't hit your personal credit report and they're not as throttled as the personal cards are. But even personal cards, I usually open a new one every 3 months because I figure by the time I met one requirement, I'm going to end up spending something else. I mean, I just spent 15 grand on a wedding in Mexico. I made sure that I had the right credit card to max. I earned 60,000 points, 4 points per dollar on the hotel that I picked. But the other one is just pure spending. I mean, if you're doing it, like I said, don't spend money you're not spending. But if you're already spending a ton of money, you're going to be way ahead of anyone else. I mean, if you have 15 rental properties, you're going to have repairs throughout the year. You're going to have renters leave, and you're going to turn over a property. You're going to constantly have expenses as a real estate investor.
Yeah.
So it all adds up, and it all funnels into a bucket.
Quick anecdote that was cool is I was talking to Jim about this, and I started getting on this bandwagon months ago. And so I opened the Amex card. I got the 150,000 points. I started spending, and then because I had to get a new roof, I had to get a heater, so it was like $15,000 and just spend. I had to do it anyways, and I had all these points, or a chunk. And I was talking to Jim about it. And he's like, "Oh, just go on Amex, book your stuff, blah blah blah." So I'm going on my honeymoon in a couple months, and I booked all the flights for $100 out of pocket, and it was like 1,000 or something more in flights. So it's just cool. Like, it's crazy. You're gonna spend it anyways, so it's neat. It is.
Yeah. There really is an art to redemptions, but like I said, there's definitely better redemptions than others, but there's a balance too. So I mean that would be a whole separate conversation itself. Is redeeming because there's different partner programs and Chase points transfer to Hyatt and United, but Amex points you can transfer to Aeroplan and Singapore Airlines. Like it's just like I
You're gonna
said,
make their head explode.
there's websites now that help you like do searches and stuff like that. But I've been doing it so long, it's just one of those things that like I just know. Like if somebody tells me, I flew here and my connecting airport was in Miami, I'm like, well then you flew American because that's one of their hubs. But if they're like my connecting airport was in Houston, I'm like, well then you flew United because that's their connecting hub. Like I just know this stuff like from doing it for so long.
Such a wealth of knowledge. All right, I got a couple quick questions for you, faster answers. Let's see what you got. So, what separates a top performing travel hacker from the rest of the crowd?
Understanding how to maximize the earning of redemptions, because at the end of the day, if you leave here and say that sounds like a lot, then just get a basic cashback card. Just you know go bank with somebody who's going to pay you to bank with them versus a bank that's not going to give you shit. I don't know if we can say that on YouTube, but
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
bleep it out. But if this all sounds complicated, at least get a cashback card. But if you really want to get into the top tier, read these sites, go to Boarding Area, go to Flyer Talk. It'll open up a whole world of people that just live and breathe this stuff and learn how to earn the most points and redeem for the best values, and that'll put you in the top tier.
If you can buy an investment property, you can do this as well.
Oh yeah,
You'll be all
it's
right.
actually easier than that and a lot less due diligence.
Yeah. What is a daily habit that you do that contributes to your travel hacking?
Yeah, every single morning and multiple times a day, I check Doctor of Credit and Boarding Area. Like I said, when the hottest of the hottest things get posted, they could be dead in 5 minutes. They could be dead in 2 minutes. When those Buenos Aires mistake fares happened, I literally it was dead within an hour. So if I would have looked at that and read it the next morning, the headline would have had the words "dead" in parentheses right next to it. So yeah, that's my daily habit, is just reading these sites.
Love it. If you were starting this again, and you kind of mentioned your Amazon trick, but if you were starting again, what would you change?
Yeah, I think it actually goes back to all the other real estate. I would have started earlier. I actually would have started real estate investing earlier because I didn't realize that it would have helped me with my other hobby that I've been doing for so long. But the other thing too is if I did this, or what was the question again?
Yeah, if you'd started again, what would you change?
Yeah, if I start again, I think I would be less stingy about how I redeem points, because I probably did miss out on some really cool trips or really cool things because I didn't think that like you guys know how there's cap rates and things like that. Well, in this community, there's called CPP, cents per point. Like it's basically breaking down how many cents per point did you get on that redemption. Well, oh, you only redeemed it for a $500 flight. You should have saved that for something that would have been $750. Like you would have got better cents per point. Like I think there's trips that I probably missed out on or didn't redeem because of that.
Love that. What is your favorite real estate, business, or travel, anything related book?
So if you want to read about the early days of this, and it's an insanely entertaining book, you won't learn a lot about today's travel hacking. It's called Mileage Maniac. It's this guy that was doing this early on to the point where he found a loophole in a program where if he flew a certain number of segments, he could earn status really quickly. He hired a team of 5 or 10 people in like Thailand to fly a round trip on these flights that were like $20 each way or something. And like it got to the point where he got like questioned by like at the airline and possibly like the Thailand authorities as to why are these people flying from here and turning right back around and flying back. Like you can't do this stuff anymore because you could only earn miles that you personally sat in the seat. But this guy was insane, like to the point where he had to like run his ideas by someone and be like, is this ethical or not that I do this? And what's the likelihood of the airline like clawing back my points saying that this isn't ethical?
Mileage Maniac.
Mileage Maniac. It's on Kindle and stuff like that. It's actually a very easy read. Like I said, it's really just insane stories from the early days, but it was hilarious. I mean, I didn't really learn anything today, but
Love
it was very entertaining.
Love it. All right, last question for you. What is the biggest non-monetary benefit that you've gotten from doing this?
The memories.
Hmm.
So I've I told this was actually in my vows to my wife. We got married February 22nd, but I basically said in 7 years we created a lifetime of memories.
Mm.
I think within 3 months of meeting her, I flew her to like Vegas, and we stayed in like a 5-star hotel, and we flew on a helicopter over the strip. Uh, but even crazier, like I think a month into meeting her, I already had a wedding planned in Peru to go attend, and I was like, is it too soon to ask her to go to Peru with me, because like we've only been dating for a month and this wedding is like 4 months out. I'm like, I don't even know if we're gonna be together in 4 months. Uh, but when she said yes, like I booked us on business class, and like that was the first time she ever flew on like lie flat seats, and of
Mm.
course going to Peru, Machu Picchu, like forget about the cents per point and things like that. Like these are just memories that you can never take away from us. So I mean, I have so many. I've been over 40 countries. I one day I told my boss, like, can I have off Thursday and Friday? She's like, why? Because I was like, because I found a good first class redemption on Cathay Pacific to Hong Kong. And she was like, you're gonna go to Hong Kong for 4 nights? I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, you can have off Thursday, Friday. So I literally like flew to Hong Kong, was there for like 3 or 4 nights, went to Macau, like, but like the airline was part of the journey to me, like getting treated like royalty in first class on Cathay Pacific, like it's
That's not
insane.
so bad flying.
Yeah, it's not so mad. You don't dread the 15-hour flight. In fact, you go, I'm not ready for it to land.
Hmm.
Like please, circle around a little
I
longer.
get hampered.
Yeah, but the memories. I mean, like I said, it doesn't have to be stuff that
Hmm.
looks cool on Instagram. It could be like, I was able to fly my mother in to visit me. I was able to take my father to his first resort, like, or just anything, like it's really the memories is the most important thing. That I think it opens up a lot of things that people normally couldn't do, and to be able to do stuff like that is really cool.
I love that. I love that answer, and it's cool because I always see your stuff on socials, and it's just the things that you're doing just look so fun, and it's just like that you're able to do that. You're like, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's just so cool. So I love it. So thank you for being here. Where can people find out more about you? Tell us more about your Million Mile Landlord. Give us a little more insight and details.
Yeah, so my plan is to post content on Instagram and TikTok, and eventually YouTube. YouTube's a little bit longer form, but I want to first kind of get the short form stuff down. Uh, the handle I came up with, it was Million Mile Landlord, because I do real estate investing, and I also love earning points and miles, and I've definitely earned on average at least 1 million points per year, if not more. So definitely well over 20 million points. But I really wish I would have tracked from day one. But if you're on Instagram or TikTok, Million Mile Landlord, I'll of course eventually link to YouTube. It's going to take a little more effort to get some YouTube content up. Uh, I only have one video up right now. Sometimes I post stuff to stories because it's not really like long-term content, but maybe it's in the moment content. But I really want to open up, a world to people that benefits them, whether, like I said, is visiting family, going back to Colombia, or going on a honeymoon. I want to open up that world up, and I think I know I found the audience that I can speak to about it, because you guys have the foundational pieces that my wife's cousin on messaged me on Facebook, who's probably in debt. It probably isn't the best person to teach this stuff to.
Love it.
And my wife's cousin is in debt. I know. I'm just trying to make up like a scenario, but
Yeah.
but even my boss, like no lie, like people at work call me, like this guy David. He's like, Jim, I gotta fly my kids to Malaysia. I have 500,000 Amex points. What would you do? I'm like sitting here coaching I should be like, I should be charging you for sitting on the phone with you for 30 minutes, because I could be closing deals with these 30 minutes and making money. But
I
yeah,
love
so
it.
the more traction I see, I think the better I'll get about posting. Uh, Honestly, it's hard to create a routine with posting content. I'm very self-conscious about like the quality of my content, but uh, I'm holding myself accountable. So just like when we tell real estate investors, just get started, I'm going to worry less about the quality, and just try to start putting stuff out there. And of course, I'm happy to answer questions, but they have to be like realistic questions, not like, I want to go to Europe in June. What should I do? Uh, More specific ones, I own 3 properties, or I'm planning to do a flip. you have any advice for me?
Mm.
But it can't be like something that's so vague that requires me to like sit there and coach you on Zoom for 60 minutes. Because there's only so many 60-minute slots I can fit in a week
And
in between my real job.
we'll put your info in our recap and we'll blast that out to everyone who has it. But also after this, tell Jim if this was helpful. And if this is something you'd be interested in learning more about, let him know, because just this stuff is super helpful to other people to tell you, and so we can keep posting. We'll hold them accountable to that, and it'll be awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
that will help.
so last thing, before we jump out of here, I'm gonna do a quick outro. And there's only a few of us, so this will be fun. What you're gonna do is raise your hand if you're any of these things that I call out. So if you're a full-time investor, raise your hand. Very cool. If you're in property management, insurance, any lenders, contractors, what do you do? Okay, awesome. Let's see, what else do we have? Real estate agents. All right. Who's looking to buy or sell something? Sorry, buy. Who's looking to buy something right now? Raise your hand. All right. Okay, good. Sell? Anyone selling anything? Oh, 2 hands. Okay, great. And that's it. So that's going to wrap us up. Thank you guys for being here, especially coming out in the rain and everything. I'm looking forward to networking. So again, my job here is to help you grow. So please come talk to me afterwards. I'm sure I'll filter through and say hello to everybody. But with that, let's give Jim a round of applause. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a quick question because we talked about contractors.
Yeah.
How realistic would it be to, like, let's say you had a business card, Volcan Capital LLC. It's obviously easy to add an authorized user. Would it be realistic to, like, if you had like a contractor doing a big job, be like, buy all the supplies on this credit card and give them an authorized card and say, give me the receipts? Is that realistic or not? I don't know.
That's absolutely realistic. And the other side is if you are a client there, so have you talked to Mr. Jason about his renovations?
Yeah.
We've wrecked a ton of things by putting all of those on cards and just telling his contractors, you got to get the rewards, the processing. I want my rewards points. So that's one of the key things I learned from him. I said, wow, this is a fantastic business model for you as a client.
Well, because even like if they're gonna go buy stuff at Home Depot or Lowe's anyway, or Dries or whatever store.
So usually what I do.
You can pick the card each time.
Well,
Just do text to confirm.
Oh, okay. The other thing I've seen too is my friend did this once because he was gonna come install lights for me because I didn't have time, and he basically created the cart on Home Depot's website. I paid for it, and then it was sitting there waiting for him to pick it up when he went to Home Depot.
And also, if your contractor happens to call the same spot, they are looking at credit card rewards points as a primary job. So there might be some.
So what you do is they can just go to ProDesk and say they want to do a text phone order.
Yep.
And they text your phone number.
Yeah.
And you get a.
Oh, and you pay for it.
And you pay for it on your phone.
Yep.
You just have to do it.
They can also do that for a phone call where they will call you and read the card number off to them.
Like usually what I do is with flooring and tile, I work it out with the vendor, and then I just tell them send me the bill, and then I'll just forward the bill to the client, and they pay.
Yeah.
And I also take credit cards.
Yeah.
But be careful about any contractor that's willing to pay for it. Another 3%.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, I guess what I was saying is not for the entire project, but if they were gonna go pick up supplies anyway, like either, but your idea, you guys are, that's even better than giving them an authorized card, because who knows if they're gonna go rogue on you and end up in Atlantic City. Yeah, well, of course they should.
Yeah, no, I mean even before you approve it.
Yeah.
We'll see if they buy a couple.
Oh, I see.
So like, and then you can approve it, or you can tell them.
Yeah. See, that's why I like talking to you guys, because I could probably learn more to further my hobby. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take the questions after. We'll wrap up the formal section. But Jim, thank you so much for being here. So I want to give him a round of applause. So.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.